Turn off your lights. Make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. I swear all truck stops are haunted or a portal to hell. By Anonymous. I worked in the truck stop industry for about 15 years. All the following stories took place at the same location. I worked there less than 18 months. If people are interested, I have other stories at other locations, but this one had the most frequent occasions of weird stuff that happened. I was given an opportunity to help open this brand new location, and since it came with a fat raise and a promotion, I definitely accepted it. It now has been about 5 years since the location opened. I don't believe there is a single employee left that was there when we opened of the over 60 employees we hired prior to opening day. On opening day, not long after the ribbon cutting ceremony, a woman delivering flowers dropped the flowers on her sandaled foot and sliced her foot open, bleeding all over the entrance. Within a week of being open, we had water and sewage coming up through all the drains, including sewage ones outside all over the property. It had not been raining. It wasn't like a flood situation weather-wise. We had no idea what caused it to suddenly happen. And just as quickly as it happened, it went away. Plumbers were baffled. A couple months after we opened, we faced a severe storm that destroyed the high-rise interstate sign and caused a 7-hour power outage. I had sent several people home, but I had kept a couple of employees in case the power came back. As we sat in the restaurant dining room chatting under electric lantern light, an employee who was a local resident and had lived in the town all of her life mentioned that people were a little worried when this place was announced to be built because this property had been rumored to be a Native American burial ground for years. I had zero way to prove or disprove if this was accurate, but given the events getting more serious as time went on, it makes you wonder. When the power did come back, despite the several steps I took like unplugging all the equipment to make sure the surge wouldn't fry stuff, we lost several pieces of expensive equipment. Some of this equipment was crucial and caused major operation problems for weeks until it could be replaced. The first winter after we were opened was the coldest in years. So cold that we had to buy space heaters for the servers in the electric room so the servers wouldn't freeze. We had issues with frozen pipes, especially in the truck care center and the restaurant. 6 months after opening was the first death. A truck driver came in to take a shower in one of our shower rooms, and we had sensors on the doors to let us know how long someone had been in there. If the timer had been going for a couple of hours, we would knock on the door to see if maybe they had actually left so we could clean it for the next driver. The employee knocked on the door of the shower that had been in use for a couple of hours, and there wasn't an answer. She used the key to open the door, and the driver was on the floor. He had died of a stroke. He had been driving a semi for 30 minutes before he entered that room. The employee who had opened the door was significantly traumatized. The company did a great job of offering support for her, but she didn't last much longer after that. A few weeks later was one of the weirdest things I'd ever seen. I was working on the restaurant side of the truck stop as the restaurant manager had quit after a series of bad things had happened to her, and they asked me to move into the role temporarily. The assistant manager on the store side came over because the freakiest thing had just happened. She pulls me into the store side office and pulls up the camera to show me what happened. A small 4-door sedan pulls into the lot, but doesn't pull into the gas station side, pulls into the truck stop side where the semi-trucks pull in. He parks next to the maintenance shed, which is located adjacent to the main building. and very close to a large trash compactor. He got out of the vehicle, opens one of the doors, and pulls out a trash bag. He throws the trash bag on top of the compactor. He then gets in his car and leaves the property. I don't remember exactly how long, as she had fast-forwarded the footage, but I think it was an hour or two later he returned. He pulls back next to the compactor, climbs on top of the compactor, and chucks the bag onto the roof of the maintenance shed. He then climbs down off the compactor and gets into his car and leaves, never to return. This was when he was noticed by an employee who had been outside gathering trash to take to the compactor. The maintenance shed is more of a small building/garage. It's about 20 feet by 20 feet. If the employee had not seen him throw it up there, it probably wouldn't have been noticed maybe ever, as the building was as high as a one-story building. Once the employee saw the individual leave, he goes into the shed, gets a ladder, and goes to get to the bag on top of the roof of the shed. He brought the bag inside the store to show the assistant manager. Inside the bag is a ton of paper. These documents list hundreds to thousands of addresses across the United States. Under each address is a specific hidden location on each property where a body could be found. No information on who the individual were, just sex and location of the individual/individuals on the properties. The locations spanned from coast to coast, but I didn't get a chance to look too deeply into them. I was really freaked out, and I thought that touching them would maybe contaminate something, so we just put what we had pulled out back in the bag. The obvious answer here was to call the police, so that's what happened next. Now, the thing about truck stops is that they are more often than not in remote locations among the interstate for obvious reasons. The town this truck stop is located in has 3 police officers in total. It is a town with less than 1,000 people, so when I saw the chief of police show up, it was because he was the highest ranking officer of the 3 in town. He hated us as truck stops being crime, and suddenly he had a lot more work to do. He comes in, watches the footage, looks in the bag. And the most frustrating thing here is that he's not concerned in the slightest. He asked us what we wanted him to do about it. It probably was a prank, etc. He took the items with him, filed out a form for request for the footage, and left. My hope here is that he at least forwarded it to the FBI. A couple weeks after this, there was a body found of a bound, nude, and recently deceased man across the street at a dump. Because it was a dump, they had no idea where the individual had originated from. Sometime in following weeks was the second death on the property. It was a driver that had died in his truck. Somewhere in the middle of this, we had another severe storm and the interstate high-rise was destroyed again. We had another weird incident involving abandoned things, but this one had a resolution. A driver came in to show that someone had left ratchet straps and small children clothes folded up neatly next to a diesel pump. The combination of the items was alarming for me, so I got on the camera system and called the police. I was able to find the truck that had left the items, and luckily I got the one amazing police officer in the town this time. She actually did her job and followed up with me to let me know that she had found the driver and called him. He had his kid in the truck for a while for summer break, but it had ended, so he brought her home with her mom and wasn't going to see his kid for a while. So when he was cleaning his truck, he had these clothes and some straps he didn't need and thought someone else could use the items. He didn't think about the combination of the two raising eyebrows, and he honestly was really grateful that someone would be worried and followed up in case. A couple months after the first year mark, the state DOT had to shut down the on-off ramp to the interstate exit, started to collapse, and they were worried that the overpass could collapse as well. We had nearly zero business for weeks as construction crews rebuilt the ramps and repaired the overpass. It was during this time that I earned a promotion to general manager role and was moved to a different location. I kept in touch for a while, especially with my former boss and the assistant manager. The incidents continued. A couple months after I left, there were two major incidences, but I can't remember what came first. One involving an individual that entered the building with a machete. He was aggressive. The employees were terrified. I wish I hadn't delayed it, but there is footage of a state troopers coming in with AKs and drop kicking the guy. Unsure where this person came from as he walked, and this location was 10 to 15 miles from the nearest town. The second was a customer attacking a teenage cashier because he didn't get the customer's lotto ticket correct and got into a brawl with the maintenance guy who came to the kid's defense. Slowly over time, I lost touch with them and they both left the location, so I stopped getting the stories. I don't know if they are continuing. Haunted? Portal to hell? I don't know. But what I do know is now I avoid truck stops like the plague. The smell of bleach makes my nose burn as I clean the crime scene, needing to erase any trace that my wife was here. If I failed to cover up her kills, I would be next. My Sub-Story by Sydney. This happened to me back in the 80s when I was working at the bank in Richmond, Virginia. My friend Marty and I would eat lunch together most days. We worked at a data center where there wasn't much around us except a sub shop across the street. We would get our food and walk back and eat in our lunchroom. Most of the time, we would get a 12-inch sub and split it between us. On this particular day, we decided to go get our normal 12-inch tuna sub and split it. We purchased a sub like we did all the other times and brought it back. We both took our half of the sub. I was the first to take a bite. After I bit into the sub, it started crunching, and it wasn't lettuce. Marty was looking at me so funny. I spit it out and ran my fingers through it. All through the sub were tiny pieces of glass. That freaked us out. I'm so glad I didn't swallow it. We got both of our halves of our sub and took them back over to the sub shop. We walked in and she looked surprised to see us back. We told her what we found in our food and she thought it was so funny. She asked if we wanted another sub and we said, no, we want our money back. She went back and got our manager and he acted nonchalant about the whole thing. Well, that put Marty and me into revenge kind of mode. I could have really been injured. We got our money back and went back to the office. We looked up the number for the health department and Marty called them. She explained what we had just been through and they told us they would check it out. A couple days go by and the health department gets back to us. They went to the shop and they were using a cracked crock pot to store the tuna in. Well, they gave them 24 hours to get a new crock pot and they needed to discard the tuna immediately. When they went back to check if they had complied, they were still using the same crock pot. I guess they thought it was still a joke. They ended up getting closed down and it turned into a car lot. But it's so scary what could have happened if I swallowed that glass. Well, this is my scary sub-story. It may not be the scariest, but it sure as hell freaked me out. My wife poses on the bed taking a mirror selfie to see me in lingerie she bought for when I come home from deployment. If you look closely at the window behind her, you can see my eyes peeking through the blinds. I viewed the property of a man who murdered his previous tenant, by Fox Mulder. When I finished uni, I moved back home until I found a job. As soon as I could afford it, I set up a profile on the website Spare Room. I was contacted by James, who had a room for rent on the outskirts of town I worked in. It sounded good, but he wanted to talk on the phone before inviting me to view it. We had a chat one evening, and it turned out we had some things in common. We both enjoyed fitness, particularly swimming, and we were movie buffs. By the end of the call, it had felt like chatting to an old friend, and I was looking forward to meeting him. James didn't specify his age, but I assumed he was in his 20s like me. When I went to view the property, he actually came out of the house next door to greet me. When he introduced himself as James, I was pretty shocked. He was at least 50, dressed quite conservatively, and looked like he was wearing a hairpiece. If he had told me on the phone he was in his early 20s, I wouldn't have questioned it. I went ahead with the viewing, but I'd already decided I didn't want to rent a room from him. I wanted to live with people who were a similar age to me. I was also put off by the house decor, which looked like it hadn't changed since the 80s. When I viewed the bedroom, it looked like it was occupied by a young person. There were several pairs of trainers and a game console. James said the previous tenant, Mark, was moving to London for work. Coincidentally, my name is Mark too. James invited me to sit in the living room after the house tour. I didn't want to be rude, so I did. He explained that he cared for his elderly mother, who lived next door. Then he started complimenting my style, saying I looked cool. He proceeded to put his hand on my leg, which made me feel very uncomfortable. When he asked if I was interested in the room, I said I had other properties to view, but would be in touch. I then made an excuse to leave. Everything about him screamed red flag. I just wanted to get out of that house. As soon as I was back in my car, I called my mom to tell her how freaked out I was, and I absolutely would not be living there. James texted me a few days later to ask if I thought any more about moving in. I lied and said I found somewhere closer to town. I did eventually find something with some other young professionals, which turned out to be great. Some months later, our town was shocked by the news that a man's body had been found in the fields on the outskirts. He was later identified as Mark. I didn't think much of it until I saw that the murder suspect was his landlord, James. The same James whose house I viewed. I saw him on the news and got instant chills. He was later convicted of Mark's murder. Contrary to popular belief, vampires can have children, and we learn from childhood all the ways of vampire kin, from the best blood to drink to all the dangers we must avoid. Today, I accidentally stepped into the sunlight, but nothing happened. Helen's Bridge by Only One Morgan 22. It was right around this time of year 3 years ago when my current boyfriend and I first met. A few weeks later, went camping on Halloween weekend in the woods right next to the supposedly haunted Helen's Bridge near Tunnel Road in Asheville, North Carolina. It was a beautiful spot up there with so much overlook, and with the bridge being right there with all the stories we had been told about being haunted, true or not, it made it just scary enough for a little thrill. I wish I could say Helen's Bridge, as we had planned, was the scariest part about the weekend. Not even close. It was Halloween, and we were planning on going to a show that night. T, my boyfriend, and I planned with each other that I was going to get ready at camp while he walked into town to get some drinks and something to eat before we left. If he didn't make it back before dark, it would not be more than 30 minutes after that. I didn't have any problems with that. I had a lot of experience solo camping and was pretty woodsy. The most that would spook me would be a bear if one happened to wander up. We had chosen an area that was super secluded and more backcountry sort of camping, so it'd just be us for the whole weekend. More romantic that way. Like usual, it didn't take me long to get ready, and it was super peaceful up there. I knew it was going to be around 45 or so before he got back, so I decided to read a book in the tent with the door open for some air. 10 minutes into reading, I heard a fairly large branch break a couple of feet behind my tent. I had learned how to gauge how large of an animal it might have been in the past by the sound they make walking through the woods. This one seems big. A bear. It wasn't quite pitch black out yet, so I got out of my tent, turned around to shout at it to get it to run away. And there stood a huge, probably 6'5", 6'6" man. Completely taken off guard and pretty nervous about the situation. Without thinking, I said hi. He said hello and walked closer. Looking back, I wish I had not been so friendly, but it had been habit. I thought he had just set up camp probably somewhere nearby and would be doing a quick introduction and retreat. I was horribly mistaken. I didn't know if he was saying things trying to get a rise out of me, scare me. I don't know what parts were true and still don't. He immediately started saying something like, "What's a pretty little thing like you doing alone in the woods all by herself? Don't you know bad things happen to pretty little girls like you?" I ignored him and said I wasn't alone. My boyfriend was right down the hill going to the bathroom and would be right back. I hoped this would cause him to leave. But instead he said, "What if I told you that I've been watching you all for a few days now, and I know you're lying? He's gone for a minute," he said. "What are you hiding out in the woods? I'm hiding because I raped my girlfriend's sister. I can tell that bothers you. It bothers you a lot, doesn't it?" My heart sank completely, and with a complete loss for words, I'm fairly certain my stomach was going to fall out of my ass. I was shaking and was hoping he couldn't tell because of it getting darker. I wanted to appear annoyed and calm, just annoyed at his existence. I rolled my eyes, grabbed my water bottle to give my brain a second to figure out how to tell him to get the fuck away from me. Maybe just that. Yep, let's go with that. When I looked up to tell him, he had somehow, extremely quietly, gotten significantly closer to me. Close enough to punch me in the face, cause me to fall back. I was probably knocked out for only a second. When I opened my only one eye I could, he punched me again and tried to get on top of me. Terrified, I rolled away and just kept rolling till I got up and started running. To where? I didn't know. I had no light and no shoes and no phone. And it was a good mile or so before any neighborhood. I was screaming and I could hear him screaming, chasing after me. "You're dead when I catch you. You're so fucked when I catch you." I got to a car and hid under it. I didn't see him after that. I was too scared to go anywhere near there, especially at night. So I asked someone in a house I knocked on to use their phone to call the police and my boyfriend. Ironically enough, turns out the monster's name was Jason. Halloween got extremely too real that year. Alright, miss, if you just stand right here, the AI will scan you and tell you whether you go to college, into the workforce, or enter one of the alternative pathways, said the government employee, pulling me onto the platform. My heart sank when output on the screen flashed breeder. I think I was followed in Oklahoma City by Posmas. Hey everyone, I need to share something that happened to me a couple months ago because it still haunts me. I live in Oklahoma City, renting a small apartment. It's a quiet neighborhood, mostly old folks and a few families, but things started to feel off not long after I moved in. I came here after a rough breakup, hoping for a fresh start, but instead I've been on edge. It started with little things. I catch someone staring at me from across the street while I grab a coffee at the corner store. Or I hear a car idling outside my building late at night, and when I look out, it be gone. One night I couldn't sleep. I've been having trouble for days, my mind racing with the faint whispers, like I was hearing voices. But I knew it was just exhaustion and paranoia getting to me. Around 1 a.m., I decided to get some air, so I threw on a jacket and started walking down West Memorial Road towards Lake Overholser, about a 20-minute walk from my place. The streets were empty, the air cold and damp, and the street lights kept flickering as I passed under them, casting long shadows on the pavement. Every few steps, I swore I heard footsteps behind me, soft and deliberate, like someone was keeping pace with me. I turned around, my heart pounding, but there was nothing there, just the wind rustling some leaves. I kept walking faster now, trying to shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. When I got to the dam where the bridge crosses the lake, I stopped to catch my breath, the water lapping quietly against the shore. That's when I saw him, a tall, thin man standing by the water, just watching me. The moonlight barely lit the area, but I could see his outline. His head tilted slightly, like he'd been waiting for me. I'd been noticing for weeks that someone was following me, cars creeping by too slow, shapes and windows across the street, always just out of sight. My chest tightened and I grabbed a rock from the ground, my hand shaking as I threw it towards him. I heard a faint splash and he moved, like he was stepping closer. I didn't wait to see what he'd do. I bolted towards the trees along the shore, my sneakers slipping on the wet grass. I tripped in the dark, went down hard, and nearly cracked my skull on a root. I lay there in the mud, heart pounding, thinking he'd find me. But after a few minutes of silence, I pulled myself up and ran back to my place, covered in dirt, my eyes bloodshot from the lack of sleep. I'm still shaken up thinking about that night. I'm sitting here now, looking out my window. My neighbor is mowing his lawn, but I can't shake the feeling he's watching me too. He glanced at my window earlier, and I swear he smirked like he knew something. I keep telling myself I'm fine, that it was just some creep, but I don't know what to think anymore. I hadn't gone back to the lake since, and I don't plan to. Let's not meet whoever you were. Almost all clowns know a bit of magic, sleight of hand, etc. So, if you think about it, they can just pick the lock on your front door if they want to get to you. The first time I was ever followed home by Altruistic Pepper 736. I was either in 7th or 8th grade when this story took place. It was a hot, humid summer day in the Midwest, and I lived in one of those true crime story towns. You know the type. Nothing bad happens here. Everyone knows everyone. The sun had just started to set when my softball game ended. Everyone was packing up to head home, and my little sister had already been driven home by our father. My coach had offered me a ride, but being an idiot and embarrassed to accept help, I turned him down. Again, the stupidest decision I could have made. In my head, my home was only across town, which wasn't that far. Besides, I had my bike, and I was already on thin ice when it came to leaving at other people's houses. So, once most people had left, I packed up my gear and began riding home. About 2 blocks in and around a corner, I noticed a beat-up car just behind me. At first, I didn't think much of it, small town and all. It wasn't like they were barreling towards me, and after another block, they were still following closely, and something told me I should take a second look. When I glanced back, alarm bells started ringing. In the car behind me was 2 college-aged guys I didn't recognize. When I say this town was tiny, I mean it. Our population was only 500, and I was pretty sure I hadn't seen these guys at least once. Plus, the nearest college was about a 40-minute drive away. But in an attempt to be friendly, I forced a smile as I looked at them. Neither of them smiled back. They didn't even look annoyed at me being in front of them. No, they were just staring at me, dead-eyed, as if they were fixated. At the time, I was a big fan of true crime, and I heard once that if you think someone is following you, you can try circling the block. If they're still there, chances are they're following you. I didn't have a phone back then, so I couldn't call anyone. Circling the block to calm my nerves seemed like the best option. I tried to rationalize it in my head. They're just trying to go home, Star. You're just paranoid, that's all. So I decided to circle the block. I started by taking 2 left turns, maintaining a steady pace and not looking back. My reasoning was that if they didn't know I knew they were following me, they might not do anything. But even as I did this, I could feel my body shaking, my mind racing for anyone nearby whose house I could go to. Someone who might actually answer the door. They kept pace behind me, never speeding up to get ahead of me, never honking or trying to push me out of the way. But as we rounded the 3rd corner, panic really started to sink in. I threw subtly out the window and started pedaling as fast as I could, trying to make a full circle. As soon as I sped up, they did too. I had spotted a house I recognized, but the chance of someone being home and answering, slim to none. It was a block away, and to this day, I've never pedaled faster in my life. As soon as I reached the yard, I practically jumped off my bike, leaving it in the grass. I glanced back at them one last time, and just as I feared, they had stopped at the same spot where I left my bike. Both of them were staring at me, waiting. I chose the slide door instead of the front, hoping it'd be less obvious, but they could still see me. In the last moment of panic, I decided knocking wasn't a good idea. They realized this wasn't my house and someone might not be home. So instead, I flung open the screen door, tried to squeeze myself a little behind the main door to make it look like I was entering. I yelled, "I'm home," hoping they'd hear me. I don't know how, but maybe by some miracle, as soon as they heard that, they sped off down the street and I never saw them again. Once I had saw they left, I quickly ran around the back of the house, hiding behind the yard for what felt like an eternity, though it was probably only about 15 minutes, before leaving my bike there and walking home, ducking behind trees and houses every time I heard a car. I made it home safe. I didn't cry, though my heart was pounding 1,000 times per minute. I told my father when I got home. He believed this experience was me making up excuses as to why I didn't bring home my bike. So, I never reported it. I can only hope that this was a misunderstanding and that they never tried this again. My 6 brothers and I were enslaved in our own home, forced to obey the commands of a woman who broke into our house and stole our free will through mind control. I knew we should have thrown out that intruder who could mind control animals just by singing, but my brothers were so blinded by her sob story about a jealous stepmother wanting her dead because of her beauty. Maintenance Man by Gloom Passenger 488. I, female, moved to a new apartment a few months ago and live alone. I have been continuously creeped out by the maintenance guy. I can't tell if he's just being nice and nosy or possibly has bad intentions. On my move-in day, he already knew me by name and was waiting by his truck to greet me. I'm 27 and he is probably in his 40s or 50s, and I think has mentioned that he has a daughter. In the first few weeks when I would work out in the gym, he would constantly walk by and I would catch him looking at me. The first time I had a maintenance request, he started texting me from his personal phone about the request, kept asking if I would be home, I was at work, and came and left the unit multiple times according to the text. After he left, he texted me about how he noticed a magnet on my fridge from North Carolina and wanted to know why I had it, and started chatting about his personal life and how he used to live there. This was in the evening over text after the maintenance request was completed. I tried to be short and sweet with my replies because I didn't want to have a personal conversation with this man, but I didn't want to be rude. Also, seeing as I had 15 or so magnets from different places on my fridge, I thought it was weird that he was standing around reading all of them. He then started texting me every time I got a package to inform me it was delivered. The next time I had a maintenance request, he brought a package in for me. The package room is all the way across the complex, which may have been a nice gesture, but still felt a little strange to me. I sent him an email asking him to please communicate with me over email instead of text for organization reasons, because my texts delete frequently. This is not a lie, but the truth is I was feeling uncomfortable with the texting. He agreed to this. Last night I submitted a new request about my HVAC and he sent me a message in the portal that he would be coming by in the afternoon. Again, I was at work. I didn't see an update posted about what he found or fixed online. When I got home from work, I see a note on my counter. It is handwritten to say he is not ignoring me, but he was advised by the office to not have direct written communication with the occupants. I would like to give the benefit of the doubt, but I expect the note to be an update about the maintenance request, and now I'm wondering why the office advised him not to talk to residents. Maybe someone else was uncomfortable with the text communication and told them? Also, the fact that he knew he is not supposed to communicate with me and chose to leave me a note anyways does not sit right with me. I told the genie I wished to be someone rich, blonde, and historically important. Now I'm trying to cancel my wish because these guardsmen are taking me to the guillotine while an angry crowd screams at me in French, I think. Not necessarily a glitch, but really fucking weird / unexplainable. By Probin Berated. I work in a group home, and during the day, my clients go to a day program, so I'm home alone. This was about a month or more ago, and I have not stopped thinking about it. I was working alone, sitting on the front porch, listening to voice memos my friends had sent me. As I was listening, I was kind of looking around outside. It was a pretty day out. As I'm looking around, my eyes fall on the neighbor's house about 3 or 4 houses down. Now, it's probably good to note I'm supposed to wear glasses, but I can see that far away. My sight's not terrible, but that might hinder what people think of this. At that house, there was a woman standing on the porch who I'd never seen before, and I've worked here for almost a year. Again, my eyesight isn't terrible, but it's not great. So I couldn't tell if she was looking at me or the road, but she was staring somewhere, waving. I looked to the road to see if she was expecting company or something. The road's empty. It's a big, long, black road you can see if a car is coming from a ways away. It was empty. I look back at her after checking the road both ways. At this point, even through my bad vision, I can tell she is now 100% facing my direction, now waving wildly at me. But the most eerie part was her face. She was grinning ear to ear at me, smiling so big I can tell how hard she was smiling 3 to 4 houses down. It felt like I was in that stupid fucking Smile movie. I immediately was weirded out and started looking all around me to see if maybe there was someone else out here, maybe someone walking towards me. I'm alone outside. There's no one else there but me and her. She is staring directly at me, waving so wildly almost her entire body is moving with her arm, grinning ear to ear. I continued watching her for maybe 5 to 7 seconds, unsure what to do. It was so strange and was happening so fast I didn't know what was going on. I did a very confused, tiny wave back to her, as I'm the only possible person she could be looking at, smiling and waving. As soon as my hand fell from my tiny wave, she at the same time stopped smiling, stopped waving, and looked a mix between confused and pissed. She stared at me for a good 10 seconds like that, no longer smiling, no longer waving, but staring at me. I was seriously weirded out by now, so I kept eye contact, unsure what her next move would be. After staring at me like that, she just turned and went back into her house. Immediately, my mind is trying to make sense of what just happened in under a minute. I thought maybe it was a domestic situation and she was trying to flag down help without notifying whoever's inside. Maybe she's severely mentally ill / hallucinating. Maybe she's on drugs. To this day, I have no idea what that situation was, what she was doing, or what she was trying to do. I still work at the same place and have never seen her in general or at that house again. Never saw her before that, haven't seen her after. I was so spooked I called my supervisor. She said, "Was it the big Hispanic lady?" I said no. It was a skinny little white lady. She said, I'm not sure who that is, but probably just drugs, and she didn't really care. I guess I shouldn't either, but it was by far top 3 weirdest things I've ever experienced, and my friends tell me to watch out, or I'll be in the next Smile movie. Still haven't seen her since though, so hopefully I'm good, and it was just a weird one-off thing. Super unsettling though. Quick side note for me, 242. OP was unsure when they posted this in Glitch in the Matrix, so I completely agree, it's not a glitch in the Matrix, so I moved it to a different video. I hope you guys agree. Returning from a military deployment, I was shocked to catch my wife sleeping with my doppelganger that I shot him dead. But not as shocked as when my sobbing wife later revealed they were celebrating my first successful time travel jump the scientists will have me do to prove that future is unalterable. How I Almost Got Kidnapped by R1L4 Kuma. Let me start off by saying this happened around a few years ago at a party/get-together. All my cousins were there, and so were my aunts and uncles and my parents. We were just chilling when we decided to sit outside. I sat outside next to my cousin and was just talking and laughing and just being goofy. Now, for some context, it was midday, and right where I was sitting with my cousin, there was a tree, and behind that tree is the road. While I was sitting, I wanted to get some water, so I went to the table, which was somewhat near, and grabbed a bottle of water. While I grabbed the water, in the corner of my eye, I saw someone behind the tree, so I turned around to get a better look, and there was a person crouched behind the tree. Now I got a very iffy feeling from it when the old guy called me over and asked my age. From where I was from, it was really common for people to ask others about their age, name, things like that. So I just told him how old I was, and he started grinning and motioned me to come with him. I didn't know who he was, but I knew for certain he wasn't anyone from the party/get-together. I had never seen him before, and neither had anyone else. I was obviously alarmed and wasn't stupid to follow him, so from a distance I asked him what he wanted. He said that he was going to take me to his big motorcycle. P.S. That so-called big motorcycle was a lie. He had an old beat-up bicycle that was old and rusty. I didn't know what to do, so I kind of just ran around hoping that would do something. I noticed the guy was drunk and he kept following me. He continued for about 10-ish minutes. After a while, he got tired as he was drunk, and I was, well, basically tiring him out, and he decided to just go home on his bicycle. I haven't seen him since, and this happened near my town. I have no clue if he was even from our town or where he came from, but it freaked me out at the time. Now, the part that freaks me out the most personally is that no one knew him. The only people invited or even knew about this party were my relatives and friends, and it was a mainly indoors party. I slept over at my boyfriend's apartment for the first time tonight. I must have forgotten to mention the fact that I sleepwalk, and he clearly forgot to tell me he leaves the balcony door open at night, because I woke up falling. The Time My Brother and I Saw a Creepy Man on Our Lawn by OK Effective 357. This is something that happened to me when I was around 7 years old, and it's been on my mind a lot lately. I wanted to share it because it's one of those memories that never fully leaves you, even if it's a little blurry now. So my younger brother, who was 6 at the time, and I were hanging out in my bedroom. We were on my bed, eating candy and watching YouTube on my iPad. Pretty much what we did every chance we got then. Our house was 2 stories and our room was a window facing the front yard. At some point, I think I was the one who glanced outside, and that's when I saw him. There was an old man standing on the lawn smoking a cigarette. I don't remember what he was wearing, but I can still picture him standing near the porch. The thing is, I can only see him from the side. I never fully saw his face. Now, here's the part that really shook me. I knew for a fact our front door wasn't locked. My siblings and I were supposed to lock the door when we got home from school, but we almost never did because we lived in a safe neighborhood and nothing bad ever happened. So it doesn't seem like a big deal until it suddenly was. My brother and I freaked out and immediately ran down the hall to our older brother's room. He was probably around 14 or 15 at the time, completely absorbed in his Xbox. We burst in, screamed, and desperate for him to help, and told him what we saw. And you know what he did? Absolutely nothing. I remember him seeming confused at first, and then he shrugged it off and told us it was probably one of our dad's friends. Which, thinking back, made zero sense. I don't remember if I brought it up to my dad, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't one of his friends. If it was, he would have reassured me back then, and I feel like I wouldn't still be this unsettled about it. My older brother didn't lock the door, didn't check to see if the guy was still there, and definitely didn't grab anything for protection. He just wanted to get back to his game. He reassured us in the laziest way possible, then kicked us out of his room. And because we were little kids, we trusted him. We tried to convince ourselves that everything was fine. We didn't look out the window again. Honestly, we were too scared. We ended up hiding under the covers in my room and pretending like it never happened. We just went back to watching YouTube. Nothing bad happened that day, no break-ins, no scary aftermath, but to this day, I wonder who that man was and why he was there. Part of me wishes I could go back and demand a real answer from my older brother, but at this point, I doubt he even remembers it. So, yeah, that's the story. Moral of it all? Maybe just lock your doors. Safe neighborhood or not, you never know who might show up on your lawn. And to the man, whoever you were, let's not meet. If genies were real, I'd totally trade lives with one. The girl sighed, picking up an antique bottle in my thrift store. Try my best to mask my elation after 1,000 years of bondage, I casually remarked. If you really believe that, you should say it as a wish. Did I have a date with a psychopath? By Anonymous. So, when I was around 20, I'm a female, I was newly single and exploring the app. I matched with this guy named Alex. He wasn't my usual type, but his profile seemed cool. Showed he was in school, had a car and job, plus friends, so he didn't seem weird to me at all. We got talking, and he seemed pretty into me, so we set up a date. He came to pick me up for a driving date, so basically seeing his car for hours driving around. Yes, I don't know why I did this, but I blame it on being young and dumb. So he started driving. We drove for about 40 minutes all the way to downtown. Mind you, during these 40 minutes, he was blasting music at full volume with the windows down. Everyone on the sidewalk was staring at us while he screamed the lyrics out the window. When I brought it up that I thought it was a little too loud, he said, "Nah, everyone loves it." They in fact did not love it, I can assure you. Anyways, we get to the heart of downtown. He parks outside a very famous and prominent tower in the city, and gets down the ground and just stares at it. No warning, nothing. This is where I started to think he was a little strange. He then hopped up and said, "Let's go get some food now." It was very strange. So now we begin driving to get food, and he drives 2 cities outside the one we're in. Essentially, we've been driving now for hours. While in this drive, he starts spewing racist BS, and then abruptly tells me that he is very depressed and a troubled person, and asks me if I've ever done the slicey dicey to my wrist. With this, I'm very taken aback and didn't really know what to say. I mean, I'd known this man for a few hours at this point, and didn't think the conversation would get this deep. He confides in me and told me he's been hospitalized before for SH. At this point, the vibe he was giving off was scary, and I started to feel in danger. But I was even more scared that if I offend him, something bad could happen. Let's not forget, I'm in his car, he has my home address, and I'm 2 cities out of mine. So I played nice. We finally got to a food spot and ate some dinner. At least he paid, right? Anyways, that was when it starts to get really creepy. We began driving again back to our city, but he keeps taking the long way, so our 1-hour drive turns more into a 3-hour drive. At least at this point we're back in the city, but it's really late at night, around 11:30 p.m. This is when he gets into a dark neighborhood, and he starts driving very fast around tight roads and corners. As he's doing this, I ask him to slow down because he's scaring me, and he turns and looks at me with no emotions and says, "You know, I've had some really hard days in my life." And I said, "I know, you told me, I'm so sorry." Then he said, "I used to hurt so bad that I would come and drive my car just like this and kill squirrels, so something else could hurt as much as I did." I was in shock. I was honestly very terrified with what he said, and not to mention his strangeness from the start. All I could do was ask if he still did it, and he said no, not anymore. I knew that wasn't true, but I thought if I offended him, he could easily overpower me. So, play it nice again? At this point, we're very close to my home, about 10 minutes. Then abruptly asked me if I've been to this park that's coming up. This park's at the bottom of a cliff, and it's the middle of the night. I have been to this park, but even if I hadn't, I wouldn't have said yes, because there's no way I wanted that man to drive me down there. He then said, "Oh, perfect, I have you can show me around," and took a right and drove down the very dark road to the bottom of the park, where the parking lot was completely empty with about 6 street lights total. Needless to say, I thought I was going to be victim number 1. Since I'm here, I obviously wasn't, but his tone and mannerisms were so strange while we were there. He then basically forced me to kiss him perfectly intimately, and got handsy while I kept pushing him off. It didn't accelerate past that, and then he drove me home. I blocked his number and all socials after that, but I often wonder if I really did go on a date with a psychopath.
If you play tag with us and catch us before evening, we'll give you a super duper reward,
shouted one of the masked kids, all of them bouncing with excitement at the carnival. I was about to agree until I realized their shadows looked like tiny tentacles forming human shapes. 7th Grade Stalker by Roller Derby Queen 21. So, this is a long one. My old middle school does this thing called a candygram, and you pay for a note and a candy to be delivered to a friend. This was usually during the holiday/fundraising season, and overall, I never really got one. Yeah, I have plenty of friends, but what kind of middle schooler is going to pay $5 for that kind of stuff? Halloween of 2022, I was in my first class of the day, advisory, and like every other year, they were passing out these candygrams. Imagine my surprise when one was given to me. I initially assumed it was my best friend and that he wrote something stupid. Nope, instead it just said, "You are cute, love Anonymous." I was elated. Nobody ever had much interest in me at this point, and the thought of someone going out of their way and spending money on me was very flattering. I show my friends in the advisory and they move on to the next class. Except this time, someone knows who Anonymous may be. They say this girl is in their advisory has a massive crush on me, but they won't tell me who. After a bunch of guesses, I settle on one person. Her name is Trisha, and she's a friend of a friend. Up to that point, I had only talked to her once during a gym period, and I had to be reminded of what she even looked like. The day goes on and we have a Halloween assembly, everything is normal. On my way out of the gym, I look behind me to see if any of my friends are nearby, and lo and behold, Trisha's standing behind me. The reason I remember this so vividly is because she slipped on a purge mask as soon as we made eye contact. I sound like a bad horror author, but I shit you not, that's what happened. Needless to say, I ran away and did some legendary trick-or-treating that night. The next day, I opened my locker to a pink folded-up piece of construction paper. It's a poem. Roses are red, violets are blue. You are for me, and I love you. Secret lover. I'm looking at it as I type this right now. I run over to my friend and we're both bent over laughing because what the hell? The next week I have about 2 notes in my locker every day, but here are the worst. I watch you at your house because I just imagine how our house would look like when we're married. Heart. What? Your feet probably smell amazing, heart, from the Watcher. She never even been near my feet? You smell nice. Never been within 10 feet of this girl. Hi love, it's me. I love you, have a nice day, heart, stalker. Why would you call yourself a stalker? I apologize for the creepy ones. She knows she was doing something weird. I'm sorry, baby boy. I just love you so much and need to be with you, stalker. I'm a girl. Always have been. These are all word for word, and I'm staring at the pile of them right now. She kept switching sign-offs to either the Watcher, Secret Lover, Anonymous, and Stalker. Why would you ever call yourself a stalker? Most times my friends would see her slip the notes into my locker during passing periods, and I once saw her do it myself. In about a week, all my friends now had every detail of the fiasco, and they all found it pretty funny. Honestly, I did too. Remember that friend of a friend? Well, her and I are very close, and she lives within a 5-minute walking distance of my house. She said that when her and Trisha were hanging out, she kept bringing me up and asked questions about my family. Then she asked if my friend would show her my house. My friend insisted that she wouldn't, but Trisha was persistent. No matter how many times she said no, Trisha would ask and ask. My friend never did tell her my address, and she kicked Trisha out of her house. That same friend added me to a Google Doc that Trisha's friend group used to talk throughout the school day, and every single thing was about me. What I was wearing that day, who I was walking with, and how Trisha and I would make such a good couple. Trisha even wrote down my mom's license plate number in the doc. I wish I had the screenshots, but if I did, I don't have that device anymore. Mind you, I was 12 at the time this was all happening, so I was very stupid, and I make my presence known in the doc. I don't exactly remember what I said, but it was something along the lines of, "What the hell?" I add my best friend to the document, and he starts putting on a performance, claiming we're a couple and Trisha needs to back off. Trisha says sorry, and it's all quiet for a few days. I go back to the doc to see if anything else has happened, but now it's just Trisha and I in it. She tells me the story how she was up all night crying or writing me apology/love letter, and how she threw it in the fire. I have no clue why she felt the need to share all this. Now I decide I'm going to the counselor. I'm sad to admit that up to this point, I thought it was all really entertaining, but something about her burning things fucked with me. After I tell the whole tale to the counselor, Trisha gets pulled out of class. And guess what? They don't delete the document. I'm still baffled that all she got was reprimanded, but was still left with a way to contact me. She says a bunch of weird shit that I've blocked out at this point, but I remember her saying that when they said my name during her getting in trouble, if you even want to call it that, she had a huge pin in her stomach. Needless to say, I removed myself from the doc and didn't give her any more attention. Mind you, throughout this whole thing, I had never spoken to her in person. She continued to stare at me during lunch for the rest of the year and ask people really weird questions about me, but thankfully that has stopped now and we are in high school. I occasionally see her in the halls, and I just walk as quickly as I can past her. Trisha, let's not meet. Dr. Dennis Hayway reviewed the chart. Long day ahead. Removal of eyes, ears, nose, tongue, arms, legs, and... She tapped the scalpel against his inner thigh. Don't worry, you'll live. But you'll never touch my daughter again. My ex has been stalking me. By Dino Stores. Let me just say I was young and dumb when I met him. I'm 18 years old. I met him when I was 16. I was never in a relationship before him. I was a bigger girl and just had an extremely hard time getting guys to like me. I met him on Snapchat. I didn't realize it then, but he had love bombed the hell out of me. I was so lost in the feeling of being wanted that I ignored the extreme red flags. After only a week of talking, he convinced me to meet him at the house to hook up. He lived almost an hour away from me, and I was a new driver. Anyways, how we met is not the point. He showed extreme signs of being a narcissist and even admitted to me that he believed himself to be a psychopath. But I never let the red flags keep me from leaving him. He was possessive over me and manipulated me into believing he was the only one there for me, made me cut off my friends, and even made me distance myself from my family. He cheated on me so many times. I caught him 3 times. He admitted to me that out of the 18 months that we were together, he was faithful for 3, which is bullshit. He cheated on me the entire time. I had evidence but in the end, he kept lying to save his own ass. I have extreme abandonment issues due to my father. My abandonment issues aren't only about me. I have a deep fear of abandoning people who need someone. I thought he needed me. He was going into the Marines. His ship date was late June of 2024. A few days before he shipped off, I proposed to him. I know, I'm fucking stupid. Don't get me started on how much I hate myself in this situation. But if you've ever been emotionally and psychologically abused, you can understand that you simply cannot think about yourself and your safety. You think about what is best for your abuser so that they are happy, so they don't have a reason to abuse you. We made it through boot camp. We sent letters all 13 weeks. It felt so magical to know someone loved me enough to stay true to our relationship through something as difficult as long-distance military relationship. I loved him so much, I saved money to drive down to California to see him graduate. It was amazing, and what I thought were the best days of my life. He was still quiet and reserved. He always was. I never saw a problem with it because he was his true self when he was with me. When he came home from California, he lived with me. He had a bad relationship with his parents and made believe he had nowhere else to go. This was my mistake because once he moved in, I was truly trapped. He did RA late August, late October. He shipped back out to California for his schooling, and so started our long distance again. One morning in March of this year, I woke up and checked my phone. If you've ever been cheated on and stayed, you just become paranoid. He had 2 Instagram accounts, one of which he blocked me on. I created another Instagram account just so I could watch his followers and his posts. He started following more and more women. On that day, he had posted on his main account a story that was hidden from me. He posted a joke about cheating on your dumb girlfriend. You don't joke about the shit you've done. So again, I sent him a message explaining how unfunny it was and how he knows how much that shit has traumatized me. Afterwards, I was done. I messaged girls he followed on the other account and learned he was on dating apps. After that, it was the end of us. There were 3 days of us communicating. On April 2nd, I took his belongings to his parents' house and blocked him. Told him to never contact me again. Everything was silent for a few weeks. I was healing. This man abused me for almost 2 years. He made me believe so many nasty things about myself and my family. I would go into more details, but at this point, this is becoming a novel. One night, late April, I got a text on my phone. Package arrived. I was confused and responded with a question mark. The number told me there was something on my porch. When I opened my door, there was a notebook sitting there. Mind you, it was 11 p.m. at night. So I'm freaked out. Front to back, this notebook was filled with letters from my ex. I refused to read it. He had gotten out of the Marines on an other than honorable discharge, and he moved to the city next to mine. He hated my town and how desolate it was. He moved 20 minutes away from me just so he could be close. He could have moved anywhere, but he moved to a town he hated just to be close to me. Also, he didn't have a car, so he rode his bike 13 miles just to drop this on my porch. I gave the notebook to my parents, a message number back to never contact me again and to never come near my house or else I would call the authorities. I blocked the number. That night, I slept in my parents' bedroom. I cried so much. At 1:30 a.m., I got another message on my phone from a different number than before saying, "Can you honestly tell me you enjoyed this past month?" It took this psycho 3 hours to have a new number and start texting me again. I sent a very long, nasty message describing just how great my life was without him, and again told him to not contact me. I had to change my number, my garage code, and my front door code. A few weeks later, I got 3 letters in the mail from him, all very possessive and nasty. One of them was an unaliving note describing exactly how and why he would end himself. I called his city's dispatch and sent a wellness check. He was alive. He told the officers that he was just upset. I had done a lot to try and get him into some sort of mental care. He refused time and time again. I told the officer to tell him directly that if he contacted me again in any way that I'd file for a stalker and harassment report. Lo and behold, a week or so later I got a message on Facebook from a very, very fake account. All of its posts and information were clear indicators that it was him. Unfortunately, I had to read that notebook he left on my porch, and holy shit, when I say he's crazy, he's batshit crazy. In that notebook, he admitted to lying to me about attempting unaliving, lied to me about being hospitalized, and lied to me about going to psych. He said it was better for me to believe us breaking up made him unalivable. He also admitted to a lot of illegal activity and that he cheated on every single girl he was with. The whole notebook traumatized me even more. I went to the police station and filed a report. 2 days after I filed the report, I got more letters in the mail from him. One admitting to him watching me from the hill outside my house, and the other was him trying to return our engagement rings that I had left with his belongings. He told me that I was smart to change my phone number, but that I could not change my address, so he'd keep sending me letters until he won me over again. The last 2 letters were sent from a different state. That means he moved away. I'm very happy that I don't have to worry about my physical safety anymore. But every week I get more and more letters. He's obsessed with me and I simply don't understand why. He cheated because some messed up part of his brain wasn't satisfied with me. And now that he was without me, he's literally going crazy. I never want to see that man again. I'm terrified of him. I still look over my shoulder thinking he will be there even though he moved. Every time I get a call or text from a random number, I think it's him and panic. Even though I changed my phone number, I have nightmares of him. He mentally messed me up so bad, and I can only realize that now that he's gone. I hope he stops sending me letters or that he goes to jail. This will happen to another girl if he's not punished. I want justice for myself, but I also want to protect that future girl. I truly hate him, and I wish the worst for him. The witch told me I need to sacrifice the one I love the most by midnight to finish the spell and live forever, but I didn't know who to choose. So I sacrificed my whole family just to make sure, only to find out later that the witch meant me, but by then it was too late. Possible Entity Following Me at 3 a.m. by Soft Professional 711. So basically it was Halloween night, and me, 15 male, and my 2 cousins, 14 and 15 male, decided to sneak out around 3 a.m. to go down to the shop. All was going well until we got about 1/3 of the way home. We were outside a church and my one cousin seen an elderly woman approximately in her 70s. She was holding a shopping bag and had brown, curly hair down to her shoulders. By the way, we live in Ireland, so it was Halloween. We walked for 5 minutes until my other cousins said to me, "There's a woman following us." I turned back and sure enough, this woman was following us. So we started speed walking just so she doesn't think we're running away from her, and then she starts running at us. At this point, we are scared shitless because it's 3 a.m. in Ireland on Halloween/Halloween night. The old lady in her 70s was chasing us down, so we started running for our lives. She kept running until she turned into my granny's yard, which was really creepy since she was the only one who lived there. Anyways, we made it home safe without anything serious happening, so we decided to tell ChatGPT what happened to us. This is what it said. 1. The witching hour. 3 a.m. is thought to be heightened supernatural activity. An old woman's appearance may be linked to this time. 2. Old hag/sleep paralysis. The old hag often appears during sleep paralysis, causing fear and immobility. 3. Banshee, Celtic folklore. In Irish and Scottish lore, a banshee, sometimes an old woman, warns of death and may follow a person as an omen. 4. Ghostly apparitions. Elderly spirits might appear due to unresolved issues or to warn, protect, or seek help. 5. Warning spirits. Some believers see these apparitions as warnings of danger or illness. Many cultures recommend prayers, amulets, or cleansing rituals to protect. Now we're freaking out even more when it mentions all of this, so we decide to ask it more about the banshees, and it says that they follow their victims home as a warning sign, that they shouldn't be doing something or that someone in the family is going to die. Then, the next day, when all my cousins went, I heard the news that a friend of my granny and mother had recently passed due to cancer. Now, I didn't even know about this until that day, the day that she had passed, and she was in her 70s also. Today, I came to the subreddit to see what you guys think. I know most of you probably just think this is BS or was just an old woman, but I believe she was more than that. Because first of all, why would an old woman be out at 3 a.m. following a group of teenage boys? Why would she be running at us? It was 3 a.m. on Halloween night in Ireland, which is the second most haunted country in the world behind Germany, according to Google, so I don't know how accurate that is. Let me know what you guys think this was. My unaliving thoughts began when I was home alone as a child and saw an intruder who barged into my house. Decades later, staring at my frightened younger self pointing a gun at me after I walked into my home, I clutched my wound and fled, fully understanding why. Creepy guy with a crowbar wouldn't leave my work. By Skippy Uber. This happened back in October, but I haven't been on Reddit for a while, and I stumbled across this sub on my page and realized I finally had something to add. I wish I didn't though after this experience. This is the most in danger I've ever felt in my life. Let me start with context. I, female 19, work at a typical photo studio that's placed within a retail store. Not gonna name which one, but your first guess is probably correct. On this particular day, I was scheduled to work from 3 to 7, which was our closing hours. Unless there's an oversaturation of appointments in a particular time, it's usually only one employee working at a time. It's in the basement of the 2-floor retail store tucked away in a little back corner. On this particular day, I came in to close the studio. My manager and coworker were still there at the time, and they were both getting off at 3:30. I clocked in on our computers and I started chatting with my boss about where we were. There was one family in the camera room, and they were running a little behind. She told me my assigned family and also encouraged me to get what's called a pull-in, basically where we get customers from the retail store to come take photos in whatever they're in exchange for 2 free photos fully shipped and covered. There was a man wearing a prison-looking uniform. Definitely didn't look real, it looked like a costume. It was October, so it wasn't crazy that he was wearing a costume. It was just not Halloween weekend or Halloween day though, which I thought was a bit weird since he didn't have an appointment and was standing around the particularly barren areas of the retail store next to the studio wandering. I don't think a boss got a good look at how he was acting yet because she asked him if he wanted to come in for some photos. She said something about how he was already in a costume and it'd be perfect. I didn't hear much of this because I was checking in the next family. My boss walked by me as I was about to head in for the setup on the studio and let me know that the guy was interested in the photos after this appointment. The family I was working with was great and things were going smoothly, but I noticed during the session that he had come and sit on the bench closest to the photo studio. No big deal, but this bench is usually used for parents to watch or put their belongings on, but it's not like he was expected to know that. My boss popped into the photo room one last time before she left and told me something along the lines of, "Hey, I'm getting some weird vibes from that guy you're going to photograph, so I'm going to have Andrew, retail store manager and fake name, come by and check in and make sure everything's going alright." After taking the photos, it takes me a few minutes to edit them. The customers go out and stay in the camera room. The family went and sat down at a different bench. At this point, the guy was starting to walk into the studio and asked when it was his turn. It was at this point I noticed his crowbar was fully real and not a prop. It started to make me nervous the way he was swinging it around. I told him I'd be able to help him in a minute and to go wait outside. While he's outside, he starts sitting down on the bench and folding over on himself, nodding off and snapping back up and moving around. I'm not stupid, and I know he's on drugs. It's just me, him, and a single mother and her 2 children. I stopped paying attention to my editing and started paying attention to him. I could tell he was starting to make this family uncomfortable. He started waving around the crowbar in a dangerous way. I was concerned about the glass and my safety. He walked back into the studio a few times and wasn't taking no for an answer. Continually banging into the studio and asking, "When are we going to take my pictures?" with this horrifying dead look. I finally got done editing the family's photos and was practically shaking at the checkout. The mom I was working with tuned into the situation pretty quick. The guy kept looking over the computer and trying to see her photos. She loudly asked, "Can I help you?" To which the guy just responded, rambling more about how he's supposed to be taking pictures. She whispered over to me, but I'm sure he could still hear. She asked me if I was okay. I took out their appointment paper and said out loud something about the price and wrote on the paper that he wasn't going away and that my manager was supposed to be on the way to help. At this point, it had been an hour and a half since my coworker left. She seemed still on edge, but we went through with her transaction. At this point, I was completely paralyzed. I was one card swipe away from being alone in a tiny studio with a crazy, drugged-out man with a real crowbar. I went to scan her card on our in-store card scanning machine, and by the grace of God, her card wasn't working on our local system. The card won't scan on the local system. We had to reprint the transaction and check out at a regular register inside the retail store. I saw this moment as an out. I grabbed the new printed paper and walked her over to a register at our salon. The second I was out of the man's eyesight, I burst into tears and explained what's happening to one of the salon guys. He immediately pages the manager over our phone and they ask if I like to wait in the break room or the salon. I would have walked past this man to go to the break room, so I just stayed in the salon. The mom who had been helping me throughout the whole experience told me afterwards that there was no way she was going to leave me alone with him no matter what. That was reassuring to hear. I had to wait out for them to kick him out. The manager got another guy and they both went to confront him. After 15 minutes, no word, I peeked out to see if the guy had left the studio yet. He was gone. Thank God I didn't have any other appointments that night, but I still had to sit alone in that studio the rest of the night, and every time the elevator went off, it startled me a bit. It took a while to recover, and I still get uneasy working alone sometimes. I think the scariest part is what I didn't see. About 45 minutes later, the manager of the store came by and checked in on me. I asked him about the guy and how kicking him out went. He proceeded to tell me that the guy became absolutely furious, causing a complete scene, threw his crowbar at the ground near the manager. After getting mall security over to help, they were successfully able to escort him out. I was supposed to wait outside for an Uber after work, but I decided to wait in the studio and get a ride from my mom. Do you like writing in third-person point of view? Asked the little girl in the comments section of our favorite writer's latest story. Used to write in first-person point of view, but then my stories started to happen to me, replied the horror story writer. Lost and Found by Wolf Writes 89. This happened a few months ago, and I've been meaning to post it, so here it goes. In August last year, my bestie and I were super excited to go shop the Halloween decor at Michael's craft store. We went in and did some serious damage, each buying a bunch of items. One in particular I was excited about was a white cabinet with probably an 8x11 with random little oddities in it. A fake bird skull, some little apothecary jars, things like that. Bestie got one too. I brought my purchase home, and since it was only August, I put all the bags on the dining room table. We rarely eat there, so it usually piled with random stuff. So fast forward a month, and I was excited to finally decorate for spooky season. I asked my husband to get stuff out of the storage, and I started unpacking those bags from Michael's. I was unpacking things, and I realized that the white cabinet was missing. I went back into the dining room and started looking everywhere. I cleaned off the entire table, pulled out the chairs. When I didn't find it, I went out to look in my car, under the seats, in the trunk, everywhere. I asked my husband if he had seen it. He said no. To be fair, I have ADHD, so losing something isn't uncommon. So I asked him to look, and he did the exact same thing I did. He pulled out the chairs, checked my car, searched every reasonable and unreasonable place in the entire house. When it was nowhere to be found, I called Bestie to ask her if I had actually bought it all. She said yes, she was sure I had. All I could figure was that we were both either mistaken or maybe somewhere left it in the cart or something along those lines. It bugged me like crazy, but I accepted that it wasn't at my house. I went to order it on the website, but it was sold out. I went back to the store and the white ones were gone, but I ended up buying a similar black one. A couple more weeks go by and it's a few days before Halloween. I woke up one morning and was doing morning feedings for my pets. One of my cats likes to be a brat and makes you find her for feeding time. It's a game for her. She jingles a bell on her collar and you have to go find her. So I'm looking and hear her bells in the dining room. I go grab her and she's sitting on the table. I come around so I can reach her, and as soon as I look down, there was the white cabinet. It's sitting in the chair right behind her. That chair is her favorite one. My husband and I have both picked her up out of there dozens of times since the cabinet went missing, so there's zero chance that it had been there the whole time. My husband isn't a prankster, and he swears up and down he didn't find it and put it there or anything else. This cat is a weird one, getting out of closed rooms and once bringing me a feather even though she's an indoor only and there's nowhere she could have got a feather from. So we joke that she had gone into the void to find the cabinet for me. "Could you hand me a towel, honey?" I asked my wife out of habit while still in the shower. Accepting the towel from a pale, decrepit hand with golden nail polish forced me into remembering my status as a widower, too afraid to step out and greet the dark figure lurking behind the shower curtain. Clown Epidemic by Prep Punk. Okay, so this is my first post here, and I'll make it short and enjoyable. I'm sure a large portion of us remember the 2016 clown sightings, or as I call it, the clown epidemic. Well, I live in North Carolina, and we had our fair share of the clown epidemic. A Facebook localized group had posted pictures of a clown armed with a hatchet, never confirmed if it was fake or real, walking down my street, and a few other stories of people committing creepy and disturbing acts in our communities dressed as clowns. However, my experience is more than just, oh my god, it's a clown, and a drive/walk away. I was 14 years old in 2016, and this took place in October, right around the corner from Halloween. Going over the memories in my head, it must have been a school night, because I was staying up playing video games on my Xbox One in the dead of midnight. Sitting in the darkness of my own room and only illuminated by the brightness of the video game on my television. My bed's right up against a wall. The walls aren't terribly thick or thin, and a pinky's finger reach away from the foot of the bed is one of my bedroom windows. Beyond the window at the foot of my bed is my dresser, and on top of that is my TV. During a single-player video game, I heard a knock at the window near the foot of my bed. As terrified 14-year-old would, I immediately turned off the TV and pulled the sheets over my head, hoping that whoever was outside my window would go away afterwards. This did the opposite. The person outside my window knew someone was in there and awake at that time in the night, and my curtains were bunched up and not properly closed, allowing my TV to be seen from the outside. He continued knocking subtly and even quietly laughing, akin to a clown's laugh, but much more sinister given the circumstance. My mom and her boyfriend, now ex-boyfriend, were both heavy sleepers, which I often exploited to stay up late at night so they didn't hear anything that was going on. I wanted to yell out for help. Yell for my mom to come help me, but I was too scared to even move in my bed, much less make a peep out of my mouth. The person probably got bored and moved on because he stopped knocking on my window and laughing. I cautiously checked the window and there wasn't anyone there, but I was terrified and awake for the entire remainder of that night. Way too paranoid to close my eyes and let my guard down. God placed an impermeable barrier around Earth to punish us all of her sins. It was only after 95% of humanity perished from carbon monoxide poisoning that I realized that our reliance on motor cars would lead to our extinction. Guy dressed as a clown stood outside store window for hours with only 3 teenage employees inside. By tip potential 2501. Every time I tell this story, I kick myself for not taking any pictures or documenting any proof of the incident. It sounds so unbelievable, I didn't think my manager would believe me if I hadn't been with 2 other employees to collaborate my story. Back in 2021, I was 17 and I'm female. I worked at my local Papa John's store. Back then, I would leave school around 2 p.m., then clock into work from 3:30 to 9:30, then I'd drive myself home. The store was set up in a strip mall, so it had the long floor-to-ceiling glass windows that people could walk by and see into the store and partially over the counter. It was a Wednesday in our store, which meant barely any orders coming in, so the only manager on duty was a 21-year-old guy who left the store up to me and 2 other employees. For this story, I'm going to call them T, who was 15 male, and M, 17 female. It was the 3 of us alone that afternoon, basically holding down the fort till our manager came back for closing at 9:30. M and T were hanging out at the cash register while I was preparing pizza dough. I was barely an hour into my shift when I looked up and saw a tall guy in a full clown costume walking by the store. He was wearing one of those Spirit Halloween clown masks with a blue hair attached to it, as well as a full-body onesie thing that was bright yellow with polka dots on it. At first, I didn't think much of it because it was early October, so I assumed he was heading to an event or something. Then I see T point to the front of the store and the clown guy walks past again in the opposite direction, this time with his head towards T and M at the cash register area. It was at this point that we began to get a bit creeped out, but still assumed it was a Halloween prank or something. We see him for the next 30 minutes, occasionally pacing back and forth around the store before disappearing for a few minutes, then returning. T kept texting the manager to come back, but didn't get a reply. However, what freaked me out the most was when we watched him come back around and stopped in front of our store, turned to face us, then cupped his hands over his eyes and pressed his face directly to the glass, as if he was trying to see us closer. After this, it continued to pace in front of the store for about 45 minutes. The last straw of the night for me was when M said she needed to go out into the parking lot and grab something from her car. The parking lot was directly in front of the store entrance, so obviously T told me it was a bad idea, but eventually I agreed that T would watch the front door as M went out to her car to get something. Now, I wasn't up front to witness this, but when I got back to the front of the store, I saw T and M huddled by the cash register again, looking freaked out. They told me that M went out to her car to grab her stuff. She turned around and saw the clown guy back near the entrance of the store just staring at her. Then as she walked back towards the store, the guy proceeded to hump the air while looking at her. M then rushed inside and T locked the door. After that, we directly called the store owner on the office phone to explain the situation. The owner got in contact with the manager on duty, who finally came back to the store around 8 p.m. By that time, though, the clown guy was long gone. And lucky, when I walked to my car that night, nothing happened. I still can't wrap my head around the thought process of that guy. The clown purge thing was already far over by 2021. And if it was some prank, who the fuck spends hours of the time just creeping out teenage employees? So, clown guy, let's not meet.
I'm taking half of your coins, and if anyone asks, tell them that they slipped through your fingers while you were running from a dog,
the local bully said to the kid. The next day, the kid came to the bully with his fingers all stitched together and gave him a note that read, "If I can do this to my child, think what I'll do to you." The Red Candle Lady by North Star. When I was 10 or 11 years old, I was a pretty nervous kid, especially when it got dark outside. My imagination ran wild at night, and I always tried to leave my little TV on to help me sleep. But my parents didn't like that. They'd get on me for running up the power bill or messing up the TV. And sometimes they'd come into our room late at night to make me shut it off. So eventually, I started setting the TV on a timer before going to sleep. One night felt like any other. I had just watched some creepy video on YouTube, including ghost stories from old top 15 channels. Even after that, I didn't feel scared. Not yet. As I laid in bed in the dark, I noticed a small, faint red light glowing in the hallway. My first thought that it was just a car lights from outside, but then I realized car headlights are white or yellow, not red. Confused, I got out of bed and quietly peeked my head into the hallway. That's when I saw her. An old woman was standing there holding a small red candle. She looked exactly like one of those figures from the top 15 videos I watched earlier that day. I panicked and ran back to my bed, staring at my door in fear. I sat there for what felt like forever, too afraid to move. Eventually, I worked up the courage to sneak into my older brother's room. When I peeked into the hallway again, I saw the old woman was now standing in the living room, facing away from me. I quietly knocked on my brother's door and begged him to let me sleep in his room. At first, he said no, but his girlfriend at the time said it was okay, so I hurried inside their dark room. But right as I walked in, I looked back. She was gone. To this day, I don't know if it was just my imagination or if the Red Candle Lady had actually appeared in my house. Working with comatose patients comes with so many lucrative opportunities. Even the ones that do wake up can get by on one kidney. The Dead Bride by North Star. About a year or so after my experience with a ghost lady I now call the Red Candle Lady, I had another strange encounter. It was around Halloween, a time I always loved. The air felt great, and I was excited for pumpkin pie and all the spooky decorations. That year, my family bought this Halloween protection that could display all sorts of scary videos onto surfaces. Funny little pumpkins laughing, zombies, skeletons, ghosts, the usual stuff. But one video in particular stood out to me, the Ghost Bride. The video showed a woman in a wedding dress. At first, she seemed normal. Well, as normal as a ghost could be. She floated in one spot and gestured with a finger, as if beckoning you to come closer. As the video continued, she would slowly move from one side of the window to the other. The projector was designed to display the videos onto windows, by the way. Eventually, the Ghost Bride would start crying, floating up and down, and then she let out a loud scream. But my family couldn't point the projector at the windows since our windows are too big and we had a huge blind covering most of it. so instead they aimed the projector at a wall inside the house where everyone could see it. Anyway, one night I was getting ready for bed and my dad told me to turn on the projector like usual. I turned it on, got in bed, and everything felt normal. Until around 2:30 or 3 a.m. I noticed a faint white light coming down the hallway, similar to the light I saw the Red Candle Lady's story I mentioned earlier. At first, I didn't think much of it and I went back to sleep. But a few minutes later, I noticed the light getting brighter. Then I saw what seemed to be a glowing white cloth moving across the door frame. Curious and uneasy, I walked to the door and saw the ghost bride standing there. She turned her head and looked right at me, then made the same hand gesture from the projector video, motioning for me to come closer. I knew this wasn't normal. Terrified, I immediately went back to bed, covered up, and stayed still for a few minutes. When I finally got the courage to check again, I peeked into the hallway, and this time, nothing was there. Even stranger, the projector wasn't running. None of the Halloween videos were playing. Confused, I went to the living room to see what was going on and realized the projector was completely unplugged. I know for a fact I didn't unplug it that night. I have no idea if my parents went to the living room after I fell asleep and unplugged it, but they never mentioned doing so. All I know is that I saw the ghost bride standing in my hallway, just like the one from the projector video. Ever since that night, I've been afraid of that house. I still live here today, but I stay in a different room now. So far, I've had 3 different ghost experiences in this house, and I wonder sometimes if I should try a Ouija board. Though my parents are very religious, and I still have some faith in God. Christian faith. When I noticed that our cleric was missing, I frantically sent a message to my party asking if anyone had seen him. As I read their lips, a sense of dread spread through me when I realized none of them could remember us ever having a cleric. The Call by Anonymous. I grew up in a small town in India in the Balga community where ghost stories are part of our literature and culture. We grew up reading stories about friendly ghosts/creatures that gets more serious as you adapt to a more grown-up books. You also can do a simple Google search on ghosts in Balga community and you'll find a list of them. Moreover, we have a festival called Boot Kadashi, which is similar to that of Halloween in the West. So I wasn't really scared of such things as a kid, but I was really intrigued by it. This is a story of such a creature called an Ishi. At least, that's what my grandpa believed it was. I will narrate this story on behalf of my grandfather, who would always tell me stories of other people's experience, but this one is his personal experience. Back then, in the early 50s, there used to be a temple where my grandfather lived. It was a very small, secluded village between the borders of Bangladesh and India. In that temple, till the late 30s, people used to practice the ritual of sacrificing human heads and goat heads. And he had told me about many instances where he had come home late from work and would spot figures half human, half goat, like shadows in the dark lanes. Sounds creepy, right? But things turned upside down for him one night. It was monsoon, the season of the most awaited freshwater fish of the year called hissa, and my grandfather had this habit of fishing post-sunset. He said the fish were calmer in the lake nearby after sunset, although No one understood that logic, but I guess he was just avoiding getting bothered by other fishermen. He couldn't tell me the exact time, but he thinks he was fishing around 8:30 p.m. Mind you, it was a small village between the borders, and 8:30 p.m. was like post-midnight there. He was fishing happily and got too lucky with the big-sized fish with lots of eggs inside its stomach. The lake was 10 minutes walk from the house and exactly the opposite of that temple. After some time, he heard my grandma calling him from behind, somewhere in the darkness, but she usually doesn't do that. He came for fishing after he had a long day at the shop where he worked. He had his dinner and everyone was asleep. He didn't want to be bothered. He specifically told that to my grandma before leaving the house. "What is it, woman?" he yelled without looking back, focusing on his fishing net, but there was no response. "What?" he yelled again in a few seconds. No response came. She never stepped outside alone that late. She always mentioned how the village felt after 6 p.m. It felt as if every single person was dead inside their houses. Even the animals were quieter, and not a single leaf moved during summer. It felt like something very bad happened in the village every night, and everyone died of a plague. He realized that it could be something urgent. He started packing everything and was about to leave when he heard his name being called again in the darkness, echoing in the emptiness. Why wouldn't she just come to the lake instead? He thought to himself. Don't wander in the darkness, dear. Go home. I'm following you, he replied to the echoes. Following you, following you, following you. A playful voice emerged from the darkness, with every word sounding deeper than usual, like a mix between male and female. This was the moment he realized that it was something absolutely sinistrous. Dear, follow you. Dear, follow you. This time the voice became more deep and almost sounded like my grandpa's own voice. He had an old-fashioned lantern that flames on kerosene oil that keeps the area lit where he stood. He was carrying some spare kerosene in a different container, but he was too scared to move or scream. The fishes were coming out of the fish net and starting to quiver on the ground while he stood there frozen. Then there was sinister laughters and cries, the voice of his wife calling, his own voice copying him like a parrot. All that in the darkness with no source known to man. This lasted for a couple minutes, and then there again was the sound of his wife calling like before, but this time it was crying. Love me. Come to me. I don't have much time left. Love me. Come to me. I don't have much time left. As the flames from the lantern got smaller and smaller, the voices seemed nearer. After this incident, all he remembers is that he woke up in his bed the next morning, and there was a gathering of so many neighbors on his front yard, and his grandma was worried sick, crying profusely. He suffered from a high fever for the next 2 weeks after that incident and never stepped outside post 6 p.m. A year later, after my dad was born, my grandparents left the village forever. The doctor said that after giving birth, it's normal for women to have heavy mood swings. As I opened the trash can in the kitchen, I wondered what my son could have possibly done to make her this mad. The Doppelganger by Miss S. Sheep 666. This is a true story that happened to me when I was around 11 years old. This isn't even the scariest ghost encounter that happened to me, but this is the first time I've seen an apparition with my own eyes. For some background, I've always lived in haunted houses since I was a child, but this Missouri house was completely different. Unlike my previous house in California, where I only heard creepy things like footsteps going up the stairs or into the attic, toys going off by themselves, voices, as well as seeing things moving on its own, I'd never seen a spirit until I moved to rural Missouri. It was the middle of the day. My best friend Jillian and I were hanging inside the clubhouse my parents built for me in my backyard. There was a lower and upper deck. The lower deck was smaller and had wooden window shutters you could open from the inside or outside of the clubhouse. While we were inside the lower deck playing on our 3DSs, Jillian told me she had to run over to feed her cat real quick. She lived next door, so I basically told her to do her thing and I'd be waiting inside the clubhouse. About 3 minutes later, Jillian comes rushing over to the window shutters, opening them from the outside suddenly and frantically. I looked over at her and asked her what she was doing, but there was no response. She just stared at me blankly, not to mention her face was completely gray. I thought she smeared Halloween makeup on her face or something, so I just told her to come inside. She then slams the shutters closed, and I saw through the cracks of the wood she ran off behind the clubhouse without a word. I was confused, wasn't sure if she was playing a prank on me or what, but it didn't raise any alarms for me at the time. I opened the front door to then peek around to see where she went. She was nowhere in sight. I then look over at house next door to see her just now coming out of her house. No gray face paint, just her normal looking self. After seeing that, it shook me to my core. I was too scared to be in my clubhouse anymore, so I ended up hanging out at her house instead for the rest of the day. When I found out my wife cheated on me with her boss and my baby boy was his, I swore I'd kill the fucker. With my finger on the trigger, I waited for the moment my wife lifted him out of the stroller. The Destroyed Umbrella That Fixed Itself by Emma Beanie. This happened around 15 years ago in my childhood home. I was about 20 years old and had been to a Halloween party dressed as Corpse Bride. I had bought a decorative white lace umbrella as a prop from a charity shop to match my costume. Many alcoholic drinks later at the party, and the white laced umbrella had been passed around, messed with, dropped, used as a play weapon. Taking it home with me at the end of the night, I remember looking at it, battered, bedraggled, muddied, torn, spokes bent out of shape. When I got home, my mom looked at me, noticed the umbrella, and said, "Oh no, what happened to it?" I remembered something about my friends accidentally breaking it, and that was that. The next day, after washing my costume and doing my best to fix the umbrella's spokes, but failing, I took them upstairs into the fancy dress box in the loft, being unable to throw anything away. I hope a costume in the future might call for a broken, muddied, and torn umbrella. A couple months later, Mom and I were in the loft looking for Christmas decorations. She was the first to spot the umbrella. I heard her say, "Is this the umbrella you took to that party?" I looked and she was holding it. It was in pristine condition. It was pure white lace, unbent, clean, just as I bought it. We both looked at each other in absolute disbelief. It made no sense. The thing was practically destroyed at the party. We both knew it, yet it was as though nothing at all had ever happened to it. We still talk about it to this day, along with other strange glitches that happen in our old house. I smirked as my wife happily chugged the drug-filled drink I had given her and knew it would take less than a minute for her to fall unconscious. I listened to the sounds of our children playing in the back seat before checking my seatbelt was secured as my wife slowly veered into oncoming traffic. Vanishing Man in Bar by Anonymous. When I was about 20, I lived alone in an inner-city neighborhood in Atlanta. I was in college and pretty lonely, so I'd sometimes go to a local bar and read. One night, just before Halloween, I was at the bar and a guy sat next to me and started chatting with me. He was a bit older, blonde hair, and quite friendly. We shoot the shit for about a half an hour when he looks at me with a serious look and says, "You should leave this place now." And then he vanished, like in front of me, just gone. I felt this fear and left immediately. The next morning, I was walking to the train for school and passed the same bar. It was taped off as a crime scene. There were police all over. I asked a bystander what was up, and they said a man had been murdered in the bathroom that night before. What the fuck? Cleaning my mother's estate, I found a beautiful coat fitting me as perfectly as all my father's clothes I inherited a decade before. I can't understand why she kept this sealskin coat apart, the only garment of his locked in her hope chest. And with that, our time together is coming to an end. If you have a story you'd like me to narrate, whether true or fictional, there are 3 different ways you can send it my way. All the links are down below, including the ones to my socials. I'd like to thank everyone again who let me read their stories originally. And with this, we're at the end of True Stories for 2025. I didn't do any glitch in the Matrix, just all the Let's Meets and some specials. There was some glitches in here, but that's because they were in other videos that weren't just Glitch in the Matrix videos, if that makes sense. Now, if you enjoyed these stories, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you're new, please subscribe and turn that pretty little bell to all notifications. And if you're on mobile and able to, please hype this video. It helps it get out to more people. And of course, I would absolutely love a comment. And if you got this far, put, "I'm glad no one got kidnapped in this one." If you're listening on the podcast or able to, please review and comment. If you're willing to help this channel and podcast grow, please share it with anyone who might enjoy it. If you're willing to help in a more financial way, like these lovely people on screen right now, I do have Patreon and memberships where you get early access and a few other bonuses. If you just want to do more of a one-time thing, I have PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, and Super Thanks. But as always, guys, thank you for watching and listening. It always has and always will mean the world to me. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.